This is Love and Truth Records Radio. We are here tonight with Dark Knight, a phenomenal producer who's done a lot of great work, most notably with Joe Budden and Slaughterhouse. I wanted to welcome you to the podcast. Dark Knight, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
Good, good. So, tell us a little bit more about how you got into music, how you know what that process was for you, who you grew up listening to, and who you feel like sometimes you took little parts from.
Uh, well, in terms of how I got into music, I mean, growing up in Brooklyn in the '90s, hip hop is in my blood. But my brother, Jonathan, as I met Cold,
Yes, my dear
and
friend.
his man, 8 Bars, they rap together, and I was always in their sessions, and I always kind of know what to look for in a sample. And I always knew music, but anytime I tried to make music, my problem was I never could get the drums right. And then one day back in 2008, I was at home, I was bored, I was getting ready to start a new job, I was just messing around with this. I don't remember who the artist was, but I know it was the sample to Jay-Z's "What More Can I Say," and I just made a simple chop, and I did a simple boom boom clap, and I sent it to 8, and I was like, "Yo, did I get it right?" Got it, like that's it, and then just it grew from there. So that's how I got into music. As far as who I grew up listening to, and who I've taken from a little bit. I mean, all the greats. In terms of producers, my biggest influences are probably Just Blaze and DJ Premier.
Yup,
Um,
Primo.
I feel like those two guys are just the pinnacle of beat making and producing, not just beat making. But I mean, I love Dr. Dre, um, Bink, Kanye, Justice League, or old Kanye, Justice League, uh, the Bomb Squad, a whole bunch of people. I'm forgetting tons of them, but
So tell
I'm a student of the game, so I love it, all types of hip hop, and um, always pull influence from all types of genres.
For sure. Now, tell me a little bit more about what you've been working on more recently. The last several years, you and Aid been doing some work with Joe Budden. I know there's a lot of other stuff that you've probably been involved with. So, give us kind of a tour of what kind of stuff you've done thus far for some people that people may know.
As far as my stuff that has the most notoriety, it's been I've done a handful of records on Joe Budden's last 4 projects. I want to say it's been everything from No Love Lost until or A Loose Quarter, which was in 2012 until now. I've been pretty heavy involved with, as well as 8, and we've done some stuff for Slaughterhouse. I've done some stuff for a young guy from Jersey who's affiliated with Joe. I've done stuff with my brother, Mad Cold,
Yep.
local guy from Florida who's really dope. His name is Sin. I work with, and at the moment, got a couple big names in the works, but just don't want to let them go
Keep
until
yeah,
it's
keep it under
confirmed.
wraps.
But
So
I
it
got some
happens.
good
Word
stuff
up.
in the works.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. What are the kind of new things that you picked up on in the last few years? What would you say like a young producer, a few years younger than you, maybe that's coming up now? What kind of things to look for? What kind of things have you picked up on as you've evolved in your understanding of sound and your growth in terms of using sound, and going from samples and also just creating the whole track yourself and things like that. What kind of things have you picked up on in the last few years that you would want to kind of maybe impart to a younger producer?
it would be to just definitely to find yourself. It's not going to happen right away. It's going to take years and years to figure out what you're best at and what you excel at. But make sure that you do something that nobody else can do. The reason why there's so many fly
Yeah,
by
that's
night
very big.
producers, especially in mainstream music, is because it's so simple and it's something that can easily be mimicked, which is why, at least in the world of hip hop, just about every year there's a new guy that comes up as the go to guy. We got to go get beats from him. And it's like, when you think about him 2, 3 years later, it's like, what happened? It's because he's gone because everybody mimicked this sound, you know. So make sure that you do something people can only come to you to get. You know, if you're picking the top, you know, hot guys in the game, you say, oh, I'm gonna make a beat like DJ Mustard, I'm gonna make a beat like Mike Will, or I'm gonna make a beat like what's his name, Metro Boomin. You know, it's like, well, you can go to those guys to get it. They don't need to come to you. So make sure that you do something that nobody else can do.
Right, and then also the kind of people you're gonna attract doing that are gonna be people just like that who are trying to rap like
Right.
Biggie or rap like Pun or something like that, and you know you're not gonna really get to a higher level where you're working with real creative geniuses who are trying to create
Exactly.
something brand new. So you always have to grow and you always have to adapt to your surroundings and also take advantage of new things. You know, some of the stuff, you know, that the old cats had to go through without all the technology, young cats don't have to go through now. And that's why there's like, you know, it's the same thing with, you know, hip hop. It's the same thing with rap where, you know, a lot of cats that, you know, didn't have to go through the struggle of having to do show after show after show after show because of social media. Now they gain a fan base online. You know, sometimes a lot is lost from all of that experience that you miss out on, all of that practice that you miss out on.
Absolutely. And you know, it's just, you know, I've always kind of looked at it, you know, like as a rapper at least, you know, it's like if you're a guy who you're coming up and you want to rap about selling coke, it's like, well, if you don't rap about selling coke better than Push T does, then why should I listen to you? You don't do it as good as the best. So in whatever you decide to be as a artist, whether it be rhyming or producing, be great at you to where nobody can mimic you.
Absolutely. And tell me a little bit more about you and Eight in terms of the projects together. What's that creative process like? Whenever you know you're both producers, you both pretty much have some of the same aptitudes. You know, he may do some things better than you. You may do some things better than him. But like, how does that work in terms of two producers collaborating? Because it's different from me. You know, me and your brother
Yeah.
Mad Code have worked on several songs. We've got a whole album that we've already written that's going to come out in the next few months.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, when I look at that process, it's like one person usually takes the lead, and the other person kind of follows and supplements, and then you know you go back and forth and maybe you know talk about it a little bit. So how did that process go with you and Eight? And I think you guys did a lot of that stuff, you know, mobile, right? You know, you were in different
Right.
locations. So tell me
Yeah.
about that.
Well, Eight is he's a genius. I mean, there's no other way to say it. He's just an absolute artist in every sense of the word. And he's older than me. He's been doing this longer than me, so he knows a lot more than I do. And he definitely does, I'd say, probably everything better than I do at this point. And a lot of it was I would find a sample or an idea and then let his genius take it from there in terms of creating the sound and um, give ideas back and forth with one another. You know, it's a little different when we're because we made music when we're in the same room. We made music obviously when we're apart. You know, he lives in Texas and I'm in Florida, so um, you don't get the same synergy that you would when you're in the same room. When we're in the same room, it's a lot different because you know he can start doing something. I'll say stop, wait a second, and then you know I want to put my 2 cents in, and then it could go into a completely different other direction.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, when we're apart, a lot of it is just do what you do, and we'll go from there. So,
Let me ask you this then, because this is interesting for me because I'm, you know, an MC. What kind of cats do you think that you all would like to do a joint record with? Like
I
based on
mean,
the
I
kind of sounds that you were capable of, based on your creative process, who do you respect in the game that you and Eight would try to do a collabo, like a whole album with? You know?
I mean, I don't know about him. I know my first choice would definitely be Jay-Z,
Okay.
but um, I mean, I know one thing that we both admire and respect is guys that can really rap. So, if you're an MC who is really serious about his craft and really can put words together like nobody else, then you know you'd be somebody we'd want to
So
do
who are some
something
names
with,
in the
whether it
games
be
besides Jay Z that you like? That you know some maybe a little bit more realistic because you know Jigga's got his own head up his ass, I
uh,
think, a little bit. So I doubt that he's really thinking about it. But who else? Who else you think right now that you like out there that you guys would be like, yo, we wanna produce your next album,
in terms of
or even
guys
a
that are a
group,
little
even
more
a group. I mean,
realistic,
if it's a handful of cats.
yeah, I mean, well, I mean, I just mentioned them. Definitely Pusha T. I'm a big Pusha T fan. Lupe, still, I don't really know if he's really rapping anymore, but I still love Lupe and would love to collab with him.
Maybe you can pull him
Um,
out of retirement with that.
Maybe bring him out of retirement. Definitely Slaughterhouse. Love those guys. I still really love to do a whole project with Joe because I feel that me and Eight really bring the best out of him. So if we were, I mean, we've only his last album we did basically half the album, but if we could do a whole joint, that would be great. Um, Sky Zoo is a guy I really love.
Yeah, I like Sky Zoo a lot.
He,
You put me on him.
he just dropped the project actually today, or actually it comes out tomorrow. This is being recorded on a Thursday night, so Friday it'll be out. But so I know he's a person that would work with one producer or a group of producers in particular. Um, I love Skyzoo. I love Big Crit a lot. I think Crit's a really underrated guy um, who doesn't get a lot of recognition when he should. Um, Kendrick is up there too. Um,
What about J. Cole? You like J. Cole?
I like J. Cole. I think that would be great for J. Cole too, because I think that as somebody, he produces just about all his own music. And I think for artists like that are used to creating everything on their own, it's nice to hear what they do when somebody else brings them the idea and says, okay, you got to go out of your comfort zone now and do this because I'm telling you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd be one of them.
He's really creative too. I mean, he's capable.
Yeah, I mean, J. Cole is one of the nicest MCs out there and one of the best of this generation. So another guy from this generation will be Wale. I really fuck with Wale. Another guy who I think that is a little underrated and gets looked at differently because of things that have nothing to do with his music.
Mm-hmm.
People don't like him, so they ignore.
What do you think they don't like about him?
Well, I mean, he has the same problem that it seems a lot of my favorite rappers have, which is they're horrible at social media. And that's because
they talk a lot of shit on social media, you mean?
Right. Like Lupe and like Joe, I mean, these guys are critical thinkers. And Twitter in particular, I mean, it's not a place for critical thinkers because you don't have enough space and you can't really get your full point across. Then you end up, looking like an asshole and, you come off as sensitive and,
But that's just the nature of Twitter, though, don't you think? I mean, because, it's all sound bites. It's what it is. And so people got to kind of put that in context.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Wale is somebody that his persona doesn't seem to come across right on social media. But he's an incredible MC, and he gets overlooked constantly because I don't like you. And in this generation, if people like you, everything you do is gold. If they don't like you, everything you do is trash. So he's a guy that gets overlooked that I would still love to work with. So there's a lot of guys out there. And I mean, the rest are mostly, older guys. The guys from the, obviously, Jay, Nas, Black Thought, Outkast, Wu-Tang, those guys, of course, they're at the top of the list.
Yeah.
That's probably not realistic.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of software, equipment, stuff like that, what kind of stuff do you use? What kind of stuff are you looking at now? What do you think the future is going to be in terms of the digital when it comes to music production and being able to make beats and also do it efficiently? Because, this is a business, that, and, it's a struggle until you get to that point. And I know 8's a little further along, but it's you never really arrive because you're always learning. But one of the things that's important is that you're constantly adapting and being able to absorb different things. So what do you think as far as the digital side of things in terms of working on that? Where do you think it's going in the next several years?
I'm not really. It's gotten to a point where software has completely you know, almost eviscerated hardware. You know, there's very few producers out there that still use beat machines or things of that nature, you know, or keyboards. You know, a lot of it is just it's all sound design and getting the great VSTs and plugins because you know you can do so much with software now. You know, you need a MIDI keyboard, and you can almost mimic just about anything. So I don't know really where it's going because I mean, if you would have told me, I mean, just look at how much the world has changed based on technology. You know, in the last 10 years, you know how many things that used to be staples of life have become obsolete. You know, it's almost impossible to keep up with. But I know that one as amazing as software is and as real as it can sound, to me, nothing will still replace real instrumentation, a real human being playing an instrument.
Right.
So ideally, you know, as I get older, obviously software is still going to be an integral part of what I do, but I'd like to make that real musicians to play my music or for me to learn it, you know.
And
So
also, I mean, you could have a dude who's on the drums and he, you know, does so many different things with it, and you know, you capture all of that, and you be able to splice it up and do different things with it digitally afterwards.
right, right. Like I mean, one of the songs that I did on Joe Budden's last album, I had a friend of mine. Shout out to Dave Briggs. He's a drummer, really talented drummer. But I had sent him, you know, just like a template and said, you know, here's what I would like for the drums to sound like, and then he went in and laid it down, and it came out just incredible. And then we went back and edited the drums afterwards to put, you know, just little effects on them and whatnot. But it just it'll never sound as good as the real thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Always a real drummer, a real guitarist, real piano, trumpet, horn section, brass, whatever it is. You know, it's always going to be better if it's the real person sitting there playing it. So I'd like to learn as many instruments as I can.
And the digital learning it digitally is not the same when it comes to instruments and when it comes to sound and music as well. I mean, you have to kind of early on, especially like if you were to think, you know, you have kids and stuff like that, and you want to bring them up on different things. You know, you want to give them the concrete foundation first before they ever touch anything, because at that point, who knows what they're gonna have. I mean, you know, and
Right.
what do you think about some of the things that happen in terms of mixing a project and stuff like that? Where how many of these rappers now sing and then they put auto tune on their song on their stuff, and you know all the other digitization and like kind of robotization, I would say, of that. What do you think about that? You think that's going too far?
Well, I mean, I think it's going too far because people have used it too much as just a crutch to just do everything or fix everything. And you know, I mean, it kills the soul of the music. You know, there as dope as some of these melodies sound with auto tune, it's just like when you hear a real voice, like obviously I'm talking about the cream of the crop when I say like a Whitney Houston, but when you hear like a real voice belting it out and pouring their soul and emotion into it, nothing can touch that. But for this generation, uh, people don't like the real thing. You know, the synthetic is better. So to me, I would always prefer the real to get a real singer. You know, I don't want any auto tune shit.
Um, Well, that gives me an interesting segue that I was going to talk about. Like you said, this generation is not really about the real. Think about, you know, some of the things that we see now with police brutality, gun violence, all this other stuff that people, you know, can talk about and say that this is, you know, the kind of root issues that we're dealing with, racial issues, the divide politically. Where do you think music is as a whole, and where do you think, you know, maybe hip hop specifically is in terms of a cultural renaissance? Do you think it's really far away from that? Do you think some of the old guys are inspiring some new cats to do something different? Because we have a lot of more opportunity now. Every individual, especially some of these rappers, they get so many fans. They have a really
Right.
strong voice, and you hear people like Wale and like J. Cole here and there addressing some things. Where do you think
Right.
that what's happening with that, and where do you think it's going with that, and what kind of things need young cats need to do to kind of push the needle forward when it comes to all of these issues?
Well, I think that hip hop started as a voice for the voiceless. It sprung from obscene living conditions to give a voice to people who are overlooked by everybody. Hip hop has become, I mean, literally a voice for the world. I mean, hip hop is probably the most. It actually not even probably. Hip hop is the most influential thing in pop culture ever. Nothing. Hip hop literally runs the world now. So, for me to look at the scope of today's game, to think of how far it's come from the early '90s is probably when it peaked with Public Enemy and Terminator X and Ice Cube and KRS and people like that. To have that, there's barely anybody that talks about being socially conscious or
Well,
political issues.
Tupac, you got to
Sans
mention Tupac, who the
right,
JDL murdered.
right.
God rest his soul.
Sans J. Cole speaks about it. Kendrick speaks about it. Wale speaks about it.
You think they're saying enough, though? Do you think that what they're doing is given their platform and given what's at stake, socially, politically? Do you think that that is good enough? Because sometimes I feel like what happens is a mainstreamization of everything. So, like, for example, Black Lives Matter, it started with some people, really genuinely being upset about something, but now it's like a deformed figure, and then Obama's endorsing it, Hillary's endorsing it, so that's like part of the establishment. So what do you think, is it really enough what they're doing? And what do you think the young cats who maybe are a little bit more hardcore minded, even more conscious, don't have as much to lose? Because J. Cole has a lot to lose, Kendrick has a lot to lose by speaking out.
Right.
What do you want to tell them cats? Is it good enough for that, or do you think they should take it beyond that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of an interesting line to walk, because I don't think that you should ever really tell an artist how to express themselves.
Right.
What they're feeling is what they should be expressing. But
Right.
at the same time, I feel like because hip hop is something that people of color, and in particular Black people, is something that should be talked about, and it should be addressed. And I think anybody who doesn't, I mean, that you're in the wrong. I think you have a responsibility as a human being to look at some of these things and be disgusted by it and be upset at it and put that feeling in the music. So for guys like them who are at the forefront of the culture, I think Kendrick, I don't know. I mean, J. Cole does a lot of things off the mic.
That's right.
And I don't really know what these guys do in their everyday lives and what they're doing in their own communities, because that kind of thing won't get as publicized.
And they don't like to publicize that. People don't like to publicize that. You do that stuff, for other reasons.
Right. Right. So, I don't know if they're doing enough, but it's good to see at least some of the people at the top of the game that are speaking about it and trying to inspire the youth and to get them to look into knowledge of self and to be conscious of what's going on.
And that takes us to another segue, because I'm a Chicago Bulls fan. I was a Chicago Bulls fan. I was born in Chicago, grew up in the Jordan era, where he was basically pimping y'all. Maybe not that bad, but he was killing New York. It was like a wonderful time for us. 6 championships. We loved it to death. It was really great. And after that, it's been pretty bad until we got Derrick Rose. And Derrick Rose was from Chicago, born here, grew up in Inglewood, grew up in probably the roughest neighborhood. It was really a miracle for him to even get there, and then for him to be selected by Chicago as a number 1 draft pick, youngest MVP of all time thus far. And unfortunately, the year after his MVP year, plagued with and it was because there was a lockout, which is about money, which is a problem, because they had games where they had 3 games in a row, and he was the type of cat, real hardcore. I want to play every game. He played with, I think, an ulcer the year before, in his MVP year, the year before that. So very, very durable young cat. Very magnetic. I mean, they used to call him a unicorn. This dude was jumping on people. Him and Russell Westbrook. In fact, you can argue that his athleticism was even at a higher level, because Russell has longer, limbs and such. But this cat it's amazing. Everybody loved it. We all loved it in Chicago. I mean, I grew up just, I mean, I was watching him grow up, and it was just amazing. You know, we saw him in Simeon,
Mm-hmm.
and that devastating knee injury in the playoffs, game 1 of 2012, it really just took air out of the city. And ever since then, we have been gasping, just kind of like, oh, he's coming back. And we saw him in the preseason when he first came back, and he was just lightning quick. They shouldn't have played him
Mm-hmm.
so many games back and forth, back to back, and they did that very early on, and that's what I think led to the meniscus injury, which is always a potential possibility with an ACL injury on the other side of the body. And ever since then, you know, it was just really tough. And so, come June 22nd of this year, the day after my birthday, I was devastated, kicked in the nuts, basically, with D Rose being traded to New York, of all places. And basically, I felt like we didn't really get much back. I mean, I know you tried to like make me feel a little bit better. I remember we had that conversation, but I wasn't feeling. You tried to convince me that Robin Lopez was gonna do something for the Bulls, and you know, it was just you know frustrating, man. So anyway, as you can see, I'm repping D Rose in New York, and I'm gonna be a New York fan. I'm gonna be a fan of other teams as well, but you know I'm definitely gonna be rooting for New York, especially when they play Chicago, because I felt like I did a YouTube video about it, but you know I felt like Jimmy Butler was part of the biggest reason that you know they were like he's the more durable cat, and he simply did not want to play with D Rose in my opinion. The way he acted, I mean he did the whole public relations thing very well, but afterwards I didn't really like how that felt. The Bulls make some really dumb decisions. Walk us through that feeling of getting D Rose, and then you know. How you think the rest of the summer played out in the entire NBA, and including how we feel about the Bulls.
Well, June 22nd was a fantastic day for me. It's funny because I actually I bought a car that day, and I was driving home in my car, you know, I had got my new car. I got like, you know, a 1,500 text messages from people saying, "Oh my God, we got D Rose." I was a little more excited about the Knicks got a point guard than I was that I just got a new car. But
right,
I mean, I look at it as a win-win for the Knicks because, I mean, the guy is only
27, 28.
He's 27, right?
I think he's about to be, or he just may have turned 28. Or he's about to, something like that.
I mean,
he's actually about to turn 28, so he's really young.
Okay,
he's still got.
I mean, for me, it's like Derrick Rose. Since the knee injury, he hasn't been healthy going into a season since. He had the meniscus, and then he had the other knee tear, and then he had last year the broken orbital bone in his face.
He wasn't seeing in the right direction for like months. He was looking cross-eyed for months.
Right, he couldn't see out of his face or out of his eyes properly.
That's right.
So for the first time since he tore his ACL, he's coming into a season healthy.
Yeah.
And I'd look at it as just my hometown team traded me. Nobody in my town believes in me anymore. They got rid of me. They got rid of me for Robin
He got
Lopez.
a lot of love. I mean, come on, I'm repping, you know.
As much as I love Robin Lopez, he is a good player. He's a good center. He's a good defensive player, good rebounder. If I'm the former MVP and you traded me for Robin Lopez,
peanuts, bro. Robin Lopez, Jerrion Grant, and who else?
It was Jose Calderon.
Yeah, and he got taken out and went somewhere else. And we gave up Justin Holiday to y'all. And Justin Holiday was like basically our second best perimeter guy, last year. It didn't make no sense from our perspective, from my perspective, because of D Rose. It's his contract year. You let him walk. You take advantage.
That's the biggest thing for me. For the Knicks, it's like, okay, we're taking a gamble on trading for him, but God forbid things don't work out. I mean, he's gone anyway. He's a free agent. If things do work out, we have the point guard.
You probably get him a little cheaper too than getting like a Russell Westbrook type of point guard, you know? He's motivated. He's a former MVP. He's got great skill.
And he's got, you know, all the motivation in the world to prove to everybody I'm still the greatest. I'm still one of the best. I mean, when people talk about the best point guards in the NBA today, Derrick Rose's name never comes up. I'm sure he feels slighted about that. He's watched Westbrook passing by. He's watched Kyrie passing by. Obviously, Steph has surpassed everybody, but, you know, Chris Paul's ahead of him. I mean, nobody talks about Derrick Rose being an elite point guard anymore. I'm sure that upsets him. And now he's on the biggest stage he can be on, playing in New York City in the Garden. And above everything else, I mean, those Bulls teams that Thibodeau had that won 60 plus games were some of the greatest defensive teams in the modern era. But Derrick Rose has never played with a guy like Carmelo Anthony.
That's what I was
So
gonna say. I mean, this is the most talented team that he's ever had. He was playing against LeBron, Wade, and Bosh in their prime. Among the three of the top maybe 15 players by himself with Bogans, Boozer, Noah who
yeah,
wasn't hitting layups and had ankle issues at that time. Taj Gibson, Omar Ashik. I mean, these are like what I mean. Like this is who he was playing with. And he
I mean, he was
and
going like you said, he was going at the big three with Keith Bogans and Ronnie Brewer.
right.
I mean, no
Yeah.
disrespect to those guys, but it's Ronnie Brewer.
And those
Keith
games were
Bogans,
all close, man. There was not a single blowout except for the game one that the Bulls won. And they were all really close games. And it's just at the end, he just couldn't beat three guys by himself. Essentially.
right. So with him having all of these odds stacked against him and being motivated to get that contract too. I mean, this is his the last deal of his prime that he's going to get. After the season, he's going to get a 4 or 5 year deal from somebody. So I'm very excited. I think that he's going to be great for us. He's with a coach who plays a style that will benefit his game.
Yep.
And I mean, Melo and Porzingis, those guys fit his style too because they're floor stretchers. They don't need to be in the paint where he operates most when driving. So you throw in Noah and Courtney Lee, Brandon Jennings. I mean, I think I'm very excited for this next season.
I'm excited too.
Obviously, about 99% of our season is going to come down to our Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah going to stay healthy.
Yeah.
But if they do,
and if they manage it, I mean, you manage it. If you're winning games and shit, you play 32 minutes a game. That's good, and you get people going because you want to. It's a long haul. It's a long season. You want to get people ready for the game 60 to 82.
Right. So if we can stay healthy, I mean, I've been very optimistic about the Knicks just about every year of my life. I've made cases for the worst players just out of me being a fan, but I really don't see why if we can't stay healthy, we can't be a top 3 seed in the East and be talked about, potentially playing against the Cavs for a shot at the finals. So,
yeah, and how do you think that?
And the thing is too is that switch. You faded out there. I didn't hear you.
I said, what do you think about that matchup? The Cavs and the Knicks. Let's assuming health. Say Eastern Conference Finals. How does
it'd be very, very interesting because Carmelo is the one guy. LeBron's. He's had matchups with Kobe, with Wade, with Durant, all these guys. Obviously, the last few years, Melo has played on some very bad teams. But prior to the past few years, Melo was literally the only wing player that had a winning record against LeBron head-to-head.
That's right.
He always beat him because I don't know what it is with Melo. I guess it's just that competitive nature inside him. But whenever he plays LeBron, he goes to another level.
Yeah. Defensively, too. Defensively is even more noticeable.
Defensively, too, Melo matches LeBron when they play each other for whatever reason it is. But it's like it's disgusting that as NBA fans we've never got to see those guys go head to head in a series that really mattered. We played them the same year
that Derrick Rose got the ACL. You guys lost 2 players in the game 1. You lost Baron Davis and Iman Shumpert against LeBron, who was flopping all over the place in that game, and it was a blowout, and then the rest of the series didn't matter after that.
Right, and then we ended up losing a couple more guys injury too. So, I mean, it was basically Melo and D-Leaguers for the rest of that series, but we never had a real series between them. So, I'm not going to say we would beat them because, I mean, they're the champs and they have LeBron. The guy's been to the last 7 finals, but I think it would be very fun and very interesting, to say the least. And I think we'd at least put up some kind of a fighter's chance with everything. We're all healthy. So
and then you also got to remember Melo's the only cat that has hit multiple game winners in LeBron's face. People don't remember that. People don't know that Melo. And the interesting thing, the reason why I actually segued was because Melo and Rose are very similar in their demeanor, in their outlook, and the way they behave. Melo came in the league with LeBron. LeBron was always the showman, the one that was always needed all the attention and does all the histrionics and things like that. Melo's always been relaxed, calm. I could relate to the way he is in terms of his personality and his demeanor, and he's real. He's very real, and he's from the hood, and he keeps contact with it, and he's also, now with the police brutality, it's interesting. Derrick Rose was the first cat who put on a shirt that said "I can't breathe," and he put it out into warm-ups, and then the next day LeBron did it, and then it became a big thing, and then everybody gave LeBron credit for doing that, but he basically hijacked him, D Rose, and D Rose wasn't trying to get credit. It was just a statement that he wanted to make, and he's a silent cat. That's how he made a statement. Recently, with all the other unarmed, black men that have been killed by police, Melo has talked about, doing something and bringing people together. And in fact, I have 2 songs about police brutality coming up very soon that I'm gonna do music videos for, and I'm gonna allude to both Melo and Rose. Number one, because I respect them. They've both been clutch in the NBA. That's one thing that I really like about them. They're competitive and they're real, and they're from the hood, and they keep contact with it. Derrick Rose has done a lot in Chicago. He shows up to funerals and just disappears out the back door. Nobody even knew he was there. He pays for the funeral and stuff like that because he understands. He feels the pain. And and so once when I release that record, I'm gonna try to get these cats to do something, because this is something that we all need to do. We all need to talk about, and that's another thing I like about them. And it's gonna be interesting to me, with them on the same team. It almost happened a couple of years ago. I actually put out a quick 16 about trying to recruit Melo to the Go, and it didn't happen because the Reinsdorfs was probably trying to Jew him out of like $60 million. So that's what it was like. We always loved Melo. We respected his game, and he's always been one of them cats that I always liked more than LeBron. People say, well, LeBron's better, but when you think about who you want to go to at the end of a game, I trust Melo way more than I trust LeBron. I remember when Melo buried us with 2 3-pointers, I was screaming at Luol Deng and Taj Gibson, put your hand up, because I play basketball. We played basketball throughout, and when you got a shooter and he's gonna take a shot, you gotta have your hand up. They didn't, and Melo hit crazy shots against us. D Rose hit crazy shots against y'all, and now he's on your team, and you got 2 really clutch go-to players, So I actually think, to be honest, and I don't like LeBron. I feel like he gets a lot of ref love. I think there's a lot of that flopping that they let him get away with, and his teams get away with. But I feel like, honestly, I'm going with the Knicks. I'm putting money on the Knicks. If they're healthy, I'm putting money on the Knicks. You know what I mean? Because D Rose has never had a team like that. Melo has never had a team like that. And then you got to think, what are they going to do about Porzingis? Porzingis is 7'4". He moves like a gazelle. He can guard the paint. And in a year, they're going to put Porzingis at the 5. They might have Joakim come off the bench. They might have Porzingis at the 5 to start the game. If you put shooters around D Rose and have Porzingis at the 5, that's going to be a tough team to deal with.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to defend. And something that I really just love about the team that we've assembled this particular year is we're coming off 2, definitely or at least 2 years ago was the worst season in Knicks history. We only won 17 games, but we got Porzingis, and last year we had Melo, we had Porzingis, we had Robin Lopez, and Lance Thomas is pretty good, role player, but we won 34 games, and we had a bunch of D-leaguers again, and we had 2 of the probably 5 worst head coaches in the history of basketball. And now, Melo, historically, the 2 best seasons of his career, the 2008-2009 Nuggets, who went to the Western Conference Finals, lost to the eventual champion Lakers, and Melo balled his ass off in that conference finals. They went to 6 games.
I remember.
And then the 2012-13 Knicks, who lost in the second round to the Pacers in 6 games. And in my opinion, if we would have made the conference finals, I still believe in my heart we would have beat the Heat that year, because we crushed them all season during the regular season. But
y'all had Billups. Well, no. Billups. Y'all had Billups too, right, that year?
Nah, we had Billups the year prior.
Okay.
But the two similarities in those seasons is that they both came off of the Olympics. And Melo he just, I mean, I guess it's understandable when you go, train with the best players in the world for a summer, but the two best years of his career came coming off the Olympics, and
That's
now
a good point.
we're coming off the Olympics again, where he played phenomenal for Team USA, and he's now got probably the best team of his career that he's ever played with. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
I think
Porzingis got another
the
year under his belt too. I mean, Porzingis what 21, 22, really young, and he's got a whole nother year under his belt.
So, with
NBA
all
year.
that said, I really like our team this year, and something about Joakim Noah as well, because he kind of has gone under the radar here, is Noah, who always has had just these little nick and cut injuries with the Bulls, plantar fasciitis, and the shoulder and the knee,
Yeah.
whatever he is, he's never had long injuries that keep him out, months and months on end.
Yeah.
He's always had, missed 4 games, missed 7 games, little shit like that. He had this major injury last year, and everybody's like, oh my God, Noah's done. But for the first time in his life, he's had 12 months to just rest his whole body.
Right.
He don't got to play basketball. He don't got to do nothing. He can just rest. And so I feel like we're going to get a really fresh Joakim. And I'm not going to say he's going to go back to like
2012,
that MVP
yeah.
type level he was at a couple years ago. But I think we're going to get at least maybe 70% of that.
Well, and it's all about management because you got to manage the minutes on all of these cats. Melo too.
Right.
Melo's 32 now. I mean, he's my age, so Melo's getting up there in the age, and all these cats you gotta. And now you got depth. Now you got Brandon Jennings to back up D Rose. I mean, these guys were like going up head to head, a few years ago.
Right.
So it's a deeper
too,
team.
With Porzingis, I mean, we can play him at the 5 and put Noah on the bench at times. So I really like the whole. I think Phil put together a great team.
What other shooters did you all get? Because I mean, with D Rose, I mean, you need shooters. You got Melo, you got Porzingis, but I mean, what about other role player shooters besides Courtney Lee? Who else you got on the bench? You still got Justin Holiday, right?
Obviously, yeah, and Lance Thomas, he was shooting like 40% before he got hurt, so he's gonna be key. I don't know if I consider Brandon Jennings a shooter, but he's somewhat of a floor spacer. We also went and signed this guy. I mean, I don't know anything about. I never even heard of him until we signed him. But this guy, Kuzminkis from.
What is his name?
It's Kuzminkis.
Kuzminkis.
I want to say he's from Lithuania.
Is he like a baby Porzingis?
He's a shooter from Europe. I think. Yeah, Porzingis and Kuzminkis. I think. I know he played pretty good in Europe last year. He's supposed to be a floor spacer too, so. I think he's supposed to be like a Nikola Mirotic type, but I don't really know. I never heard of him until now. And the only footage they really have is him busting up James Harden in the Olympics. And I mean, busting up James Harden's not like a bad Von I'd wear. So
right. Well, he's on the team this year.
Yeah, he's a small forward, power forward.
Okay.
So we got a couple guys.
Okay, so how do you see the rest of the East stacking up? Who do you think's in the playoffs that wasn't?
I definitely think the Knicks will be a team that jumps in. Miami is 100% falling out. There's no way they make the playoffs, especially now that they're getting rid of Bosh. I mean, I don't think they were.
They're getting rid of Bosh? What's going on with that?
Yeah, they said that he's just unable to play. He's physically unable to play. He's got the blood clot shit in his heart. So the Heat definitely won't be making the playoffs. I think there's just going to be slippage all around. Like, I don't think that the Raptors are going to win 54 games again.
No, I don't think so either.
DeRozan got his money. He's not going to be as lights out. I mean, he's a little overrated in my opinion anyway.
Yeah,
but DeRozan's not going to be that guy again.
Well, Jimmy Butler overtook DeRozan, where the year before you would have been like, nah, DeRozan's better than Jimmy Butler. But Jimmy outplayed him pretty much every single time they played. Yeah.
So, I think that Charlotte is going to slip for sure. They lost 3/5 of their starting lineup. I mean, Jeremy Lin, Courtney Lee, and Al Jefferson. That's a lot to lose. Mm-hmm. And I love Kemba, but they're going to slip, I think. Atlanta, I don't know. They're a weird team.
They don't really fit that well either.
Yeah, I don't know about Dwight being back home in Atlanta. So, because they're a weird team too. But
where did Al Horford go?
to Boston. And that was going to
Boston,
bring me
that's
to the
right.
next point. I think Boston's going to be great. In my opinion, they're probably going to be the set. I think it'll be between the Knicks and the Celtics fighting for the 2 seed.
Wow, you
Um,
got them at the two
I
seed.
think
Okay.
Boston's definitely going to win over 50 games. They got a phenomenal coach.
Yeah, they do.
Um, they didn't lose anybody. They only added Al Horford, and Al Horford's probably their best player now. So if they won 48 games last year without him, they're going to win 52, 53 with him. So another team I really love is the Pacers. They added Thaddeus Young. They added Jeff Teague. They added Al Jefferson. That's a big three to add to Paul George. But the one thing that scares me about them is they got rid of Frank Vogel, which I didn't really understand because he's been successful. He's been in 2 conference finals, and he's never had offensive players like that. You finally go out and bring in offensive players, then you get rid of them.
Yeah.
It's like weird, and they talk about playing fast, but they hired Nate McMillan, whose teams have historically played extremely slow. So
defensive coach.
I really like Indiana, but I'm a little skeptical of them because of the.
You probably need some good assistants.
Yeah, but Detroit, I think, will be better just because they're another year under Stan Van Gundy, and he's one of the better coaches.
I mean, I would say that you could argue that Drummond is the best center in the league.
Yeah, I was having this conversation with a friend of mine the other day. We were trying to figure out if Boogie Cousins was the best center in the league, and we're going back and forth on Drummond.
The one thing I would say, Boogie's more talented, but he comes with like a baggage, like, you know what I mean? Like he's very emotional, so he can get thrown off his game. He gets kicked out, suspended, might even fight. Who knows what with him. That's the problem. He's very talented though. As far as talent, I would say he's the most talented. I mean, he honestly could have totally revolutionized the center position, in the NBA, but he's not put it all together consistently.
Right. So I think Detroit will be a better team. I'm trying to think who else made the playoffs last year. It was Charlotte, Cleveland, Atlanta, Miami, Toronto. I'm not really sure about Washington. They didn't really add anybody. And Bradley Beal, I mean, you just never know if that guy's going to be on the court.
Yeah.
I love John Wall, but that team is just weird. The Magic added a whole bunch of players, and I feel like none of them fit together. I don't know what they did. They went and they got Ibaka. They got Jeff Green. They got
Bernardo. So awkward.
They're a weird team. Philly's going to be better. When you watch,
they've got like 3 centers now, so they got their three centers are probably better than everybody else's 3 centers.
Yeah,
if they're all healthy.
I feel like when you watch a guy, I know it's only summer league, but I feel like you can just tell like this guy's gonna be good. Like watching Ben Simmons, it was this guy's gonna be the truth.
Yeah,
Ben Simmons is legit.
He's probably had the most polished passing I've seen. Yeah. Even I think more polished than LeBron when he came into the league. Actually, his passing is even beyond that. And he's huge, so he's gonna draw attention.
Right. I mean, he's 6'10", so he's even taller than LeBron. So it's like. I really like Ben Simmons' game, and Philly's, they're not going to be a playoff team or anything, but Philly's going to be better. Brooklyn is definitely going to be the worst team in the NBA. I consider myself a diehard NBA fan, and I don't think I can name more than 4 people on that team.
Who are those 4 people?
Jeremy Lin and Brook Lopez. Okay. I know Rondé House Jefferson is there. And shit, I might be stop at 3.
Do you think I think they can win 20 games though, and I think there's always a team that wins like 16 or 18.
They're gonna maybe get to 20, but that's the peak. I know Vegas had them at under 21.5 wins, so I don't think they can get to 22 wins.
Wow.
Milwaukee's
what about the Lakers?
Really weird. Like,
you think they're gonna be better than the Lakers?
I think they'll be better just because they got Luke Walton. I think he's gonna do a good job. I'm not gonna say that what he did with the Warriors was all him because obviously he had.
They were moving. I mean, they were grooving. He didn't really have to say much. He just had to manage the personalities.
He could have fucked it up, and he didn't fuck it up, and that's something to say, because if you I'm not gonna put it all on the players. You know, if you plug in Derek Fisher for Luke Walton on the Warriors last year, the Warriors don't get out to a 24-0 start.
That's true,
You know,
yeah, because Derek Fisher's gonna
so
be trying to
I
take
think more
everybody's
on the field to
wives.
get close, and they're gonna definitely be better. But they're not gonna. I think Lakers can win like 27, 28 games. They got a lot of talent.
Okay.
I don't know what they were thinking giving Mozgov all that money. That was probably the stupidest contract in summer.
Yeah, they were just trying to lock down a center because you need a center. Mozgov used to be good. I think something happened to him last year. I don't know if he lost like family members or if he broke up with a girlfriend, but he was really just jacked up all of last year. It didn't make no sense.
Yeah, and it was like Mozgov is one of those guys like you didn't have to go out and pay him on the first day of free agency. Like he would have.
Yeah, he would have been around. Nobody was knocking on his door.
I lost you for a second there. I didn't hear you.
Yeah, I was saying nobody was knocking on Mozgov's door.
Yeah, it's like nobody's dying to get Timofey Mozgov. So that.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of feedback. It's like slowing up a little bit. I don't know if we moved the internet, but you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. So I personally think the one team that you left out, probably because you want me to deal with it, is Chicago. And well, I really kind of checked out mentally when they traded D Rose because I was like, they're saying to hell with this next season. But then
Right.
Jimmy started talking all this stuff, and then all of a sudden they go out and get Rondo. I think did they get Rondo first? Yeah, they got
They got
Rondo.
Rondo first, yeah.
They got Rondo, and they signed him to a big deal. What did he get? 12, 13? Didn't he get
Here's
12?
30 million.
Huh? 2 years? How much?
30.
30?
But
Damn, they gave him
I
15.
think the second year is an option.
Yeah, it's an
I
option.
think it's
I
only
think
1
so.
year is guaranteed.
Okay, yeah. Because they were looking at the free agencies coming up, but
Yeah,
yeah. So
it was 27. That's what it was. It was 2 years, 27.
okay,
Not
okay.
the big difference.
Yeah, so I was like thinking about 13, and then they signed Wade to 2 years and almost 50, like 49
Yeah.
and stuff.
Oh,
And I don't know what that was because the problem is this: you just signed Rondo, and Rondo is supposed to be the kind of guy that you distribute the ball to the your scorers and especially your 3-point shooters. Because
Right.
unfortunately, unless he turns a corner the first time in 10 years. He's basically not going to hit threes, and he's not going to shoot
Right.
too many of them, and that's what the defense is going to goad him into. And he's not like Derrick
Yeah.
Rose, where he's like, you give him all that room, and he's still going to blow past you. I mean, he's not that quick anymore either. And he's had
Right.
issues. He's had issues. So then you bring in D Wade, and I think what happened with D Wade, I don't think he wanted to leave Miami. I think what happened
I don't
was is
think
that they gave this big old contract to what's his name? I almost forget his name.
Whiteside?
Whiteside. And Hassan Whiteside, they gave him like I don't know, how was it, 24, 25 a year for
I
several
know it
years?
was 93 total.
Yeah, it was a lot. And Wade has always been mistreated by Miami Heat. I mean, this guy has been
Right.
the best player every year up to this year. And other than the
Yeah.
LeBron years, you could argue, but outside that, but he's always taken the pay cut, and he's always been below the highest paid player on the team. And so finally you think, okay, I put in my whole soul for you, my team. I brought the first championship. I made the whole magic big three thing happen. And then
Yeah.
now I'm not supposed to get my money and you're not going to give me my money. So I think it was
Right.
more of like an emotional decision. Chicago kind of had their ear, to the ground. Was like, oh, okay, this cat wants to come back, and let's make a big splash because how are we gonna get people to get in the seats? Because my first reaction when they traded D Rose was nobody's gonna show up. I know I'm not gonna show up. I'm not even gonna watch. And I know a lot of people felt the same way. Like, what the hell? You're
Yeah.
trading the city, and give him that year. That was a big thing. Like, let him play this last year at least. Let him see, and then you let him walk. But they wanted to trade him, get something, I guess. So they bring
Right.
in D Wade to kind of soften the blow of D Rose. But I don't think the fit works. You got Jimmy Butler who doesn't want to shoot threes. You got D Wade who doesn't want to shoot threes. You got Rondo who doesn't want to shoot threes. You got a couple of good 3-point shooters around them. But when them three are on the court, it's gonna be tough. You're gonna have to kind of like
Yeah.
overlap their minutes a little bit because it doesn't really work.
Yeah, just a quick tidbit on Wade and this contract thing. The thing that really bogged my mind about him leaving Miami, and I mean, we first moved to Florida when he joined the team when they drafted him,
Yeah.
and I've always loved Dwayne Wade. He's a little bit of a dirty player, but he's always been a competitor, and he's clutch as can be. And like you said, I mean, he's given his career to the franchise, and he got them rings, and he's gotten rings because of it. But it's like knowing who is on your team. There's nothing you guys are gonna do to win a championship over the next 2 years anyway. It's like you're not gonna beat the Warriors with Dwayne Wade, Hassan Whiteside, and Goran Dragic. So just pay the man, give him his Kobe Bryant contract, legacy contract, and that's it. You rebuild when he's gone. But in terms of the Bulls, I don't know. I mean, they got a coach who wants to be pace and space, and we were talking about this off the air before we got on. It's like Hoiberg's supposed to be a guy that wants to run and space the floor and shoot. And you got three guys in the starting lineup who need the ball in their hands to create, whether it be for themselves or for other people, and none of them can shoot. And it's like you're going to start Robin Lopez at center, so I feel like they have to start Mirotic just out of necessity. They can't start Gibson because then you got five guys who can't shoot, and that'll just be a disaster. But it's like if I'm defending this team, all you got to do is stay in the paint. It's like if you make it, fuck it, you make it. But I'm gonna give you a shot all day,
Right.
because none of these guys can shoot. I mean,
And none of them guys are coming off the bench. And you signed Rondo to be your
right?
starting point guard. If you had signed him to be a backup for like 8, that's different. But you signed him
Yeah,
to be your starting point guard, and you don't
you
have a
can't bench Dwayne Wade.
yeah.
So, and Jimmy Butler's obviously
Well, you're
the face
paying
of
him
the franchise.
25 million. You're not gonna. Yeah, exactly. You can't do that.
Right, so you're not going to bench him. So I don't know what they're going to do in terms of minutes or how they're going to, make that
I
work.
think
The
it
one-
could be it could blow up in their face. I think it could be like where they don't even make the playoffs, like really bad. Like last year they didn't make the playoffs, but that was like a weird kind of a whole lot of weird stuff happened. But this year I think it
Yeah.
could be like, no, you're not making the playoffs because Hoiberg hasn't proven himself, and we were all thinking maybe this whole thing might work, but this dude has no energy to me. I mean, when I watch him, it's almost like he's afraid of his heart. Like something happening to his heart because he's had a heart surgery and now I feel like he can't get animated. He can't get emotional, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Come on, guys, let's get it, man, let's go." And it's like you can't do that. You can't do that in the middle of an NBA game when you got like all
Right.
these things. That's why Jimmy Butler was just walking all over the authorities last year. I mean, Jimmy Butler was the crazy dude that just basically took over the whole franchise. I mean, he started talking about I'm a leader and I'm doing this, and it was all because Hoiberg didn't put his foot down. And that you coming from Thibodeau, who is a drill sergeant, and then you
Right.
go into Hoiberg, who's like, please guys, just play good.
Little choir boy.
Right. It didn't make no sense. And to me, now that you got all these personalities, I mean, he's not even going to be coaching. It's going to be Rondo coaching. And Rondo, I bet Rondo and either Jimmy or Rondo and Wade are going to have some nasty blow up at some point in the season because they're going to get really annoyed. Because Rondo likes to like hold the ball until somebody gets open for a shot. And these guys, I mean, they're all going to be shooting, 15-footers. Doesn't make sense.
Right. And another thing too is that you look at Jimmy. They extend him last year, and they trade Derrick Rose. And for him, it's like, yes, he's gone. I'm finally the face of the franchise. It's my town, my city, my team. And then you bring in Dwayne Wade. It's like Dwayne Wade is Jimmy Butler is not going to be bigger in Chicago than Dwayne Wade. So.
The one thing I will say, Chicago, just like every other place, but especially Chicago, we respect game. So if Jimmy Butler takes his game to like an MVP level, and I mean he's shown a lot of progress. If he does that, yeah, we'll respect it. Like everybody will get behind him. D Wade will get behind him. But even that, in the context of this team, I mean, he would have to be super efficient. He would have to be taken over. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of physical gifts. I mean, he's a good leaper. He's solid. He's not super fast. But everything for him was mechanistic in terms of learning the game. And he's got short arms. So it's not like he's going to dominate the small forward position. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. And it's going to come back to him because honestly, I think he was a big part of the reason why we didn't make the playoffs last year.
Mm-hmm. And one of the caveats, I guess, for this team's success is, though they're limited in terms of their shooting ability, Rondo and Wade both are two of the smartest, if not the smartest, players in the game today. So it's like, I'm sure they can figure it out to make it work because they're both veterans, have been around a while. I'm sure Rondo knows his place in today's NBA. Being a guy that can't shoot, it's going to be a short leash with him, but I don't know. I just the way the team's constructed and the way Hoiberg is, I don't like the way they look on paper. And it could definitely blow up in their face and they don't end up making the playoffs. I mean, and then Wade's pissed. He's gonna want to leave. Rondo's gonna be like, I'm opting out. Jimmy's gonna be alone. It's gonna be, I don't know. It's gonna be weird.
It's gonna be tough to pull people in because Reinsdorf is a particularly nasty dude, and he does stupid things and he says stupid things, and now he's senile too. So he got in the media and was trash talking. He didn't really trash talk D Rose. I mean, D Rose almost impossible to trash talk as an individual because he's a great person, but he trash talked Noah, basically saying, "Oh well, we knew Noah was not a frontline center anymore, and so we were trying to do this." And like, no, man, you weren't trying to respect your players. That's basically what it was. And I feel like because of that legacy, I mean, and now you bring in Jimmy Butler, but you're letting Jimmy kind of run the show in a sense, and it's kind of like so his team or whatever. I mean, you have to hope that people want to play with Jimmy because Jimmy has a little bit of a Kobe complex without all that talent, where he feels like he wants to be all by himself in a lot of things, and that's why when they brought in D Wade, it was kind of like a stopgap, and Jimmy kind of endorsed it because D Wade's not trying to take over a team at age 34 or whatever he is, but I don't really like the fit. I don't think they're gonna make the playoffs. I'm kind of rooting against them, honestly. I might check in if they play very, very well. I might check in here and there. But taking it to the Western Conference, because I wanted to get to that, for a little bit. What do you see at the top? What do you see? You still see San Antonio there? We know we have the Warriors there. Do you think the Thunder has a chance to even make the playoffs now that they lost Kevin Durant? Is it just a cakewalk for the Warriors? Do they just walk in and waltz into the championship and win it?
In terms of the Warriors walking in, yes, I do think it's just going to be a cakewalk.
So now the West is going to be the East of the last several years.
Yeah, the Thunder. It's going to be a real interesting season with them too, because I know a lot of people are ready to jump on Russ and be like, "Oh, Russ is going to have the greatest season ever. He's going to average 30 points, 10 assists, 9 rebounds."
Yeah, I think he's going to have an Oscar Robertson season if he stays healthy.
I do think he's going to.
I'm afraid though for him because I know how he is, and I mean that's what got D Rose injured. I don't want to see an injury to Russ because I mean he's one of the unique players that we've ever had.
Yeah, and I do believe as well that Russ is going to have one of those type of seasons. My only thing is, without Durant last year, not season just passed, but I get 2 seasons ago when Durant was injured with the foot, Russ was putting up those type of numbers and they weren't winning.
Yeah, did he get? He didn't even get them to the playoffs, right?
Nah, they won I think 44 games, and that was with Durant checking in throughout the season. It's not like Durant just missed the whole stretch of games. He played a cut. He's like, I think he played like 19.
Yeah,
and then he missed like 25, came back for like 10, and then he was just done. But that was with Kevin Durant playing, and Russ didn't get him to the playoffs. And they were more talented, that team, than this team is, in my opinion. And now, I don't like the way that, I mean, Oladipo is a good player. I'm not ready to drink the Steven Adams Kool-Aid yet because, I mean, he had one great series against the Spurs, and that was it. And he beat up on 42-year-old Tim Duncan. So, and Duncan still almost got him back at the end of that Game 6. But they got a good team, but I'm not sure on the Thunder. I think they're definitely going to make the playoffs still, but and I guess I bet on Russ to be MVP.
Oh, wow. But, MVP?
Yeah. I think so.
Well, he's got to win a certain. He's got to be like in the top 5 seeds, though. Do you really think he can get MVP without being in the top 5 seeds?
Well, that's another thing too. Is that when I think of MVPs, there's never really been an MVP that didn't win 50 games. So it's gonna be interesting, but I don't know who else it could be because it's like one of the Warrior guys is not going to get it. Just out of the fact that they play together, they're not going to give it to Durant. They're not going to give it to Curry. LeBron takes the regular seasons off now.
It could be Melo or D Rose. It's possible.
If the Knicks win 50 games and Melo averages 25 a game, or D Rose, makes a comeback, I mean, sure, it could be one of them. I guess maybe Harden too, because he's probably going to go insane this year with D'Antoni coaching him. He's going to average 35 a game, something sick.
But he's going to have bad numbers, I think, efficiency wise, and I don't think the team's going to do that well.
Yeah, they got no defense at all. I kind of like Paul George as a dark horse with MVP as well.
Okay.
But I think the Thunder still get in because just looking at who was in the playoffs last year, I can't imagine that. Well, doing it, I think it's going to come down to the Thunder, the Mavericks, the not the Jazz, the Timberwolves, and the
Okay.
Rockets for those 7 and 8 seeds. And I mean, Russ is an incredible player, so I think they'll get in. But I just know that the West is definitely going to be a cakewalk for Golden State. I mean, that team
Who
is
gives them the most trouble? I think, honestly, the way things go, if the Spurs don't do it, the Clippers I don't think can do it, honestly. And I actually think the Timberwolves might be the one team because Tibbs teams play harder than everybody else. And
right.
like now the one thing I'll say is that when he played with when he was coaching the Bulls, those teams they had talent, right? But they were always overachievers. They were always overachieving. They were kind of old. They were all kind of like veteran teams always.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the Timberwolves, they've got a lot of young athletic players. I mean, I think they have a lot more talent than the Milwaukee Bucks, who have a lot of length and talent as well, and athleticism. But when you think about the kind of team that they have, and if Tibbs really gets them going, I don't think they're gonna do anything to the Warriors, But honestly, I think that they're the one team that probably will play them toughest in the entire season. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and I think there's two teams that are going to be tough for the Warriors in the West. One of them is the Timberwolves, and because the Timberwolves gave them trouble last year. The Timberwolves were the first team to beat them at home last year. Or no, I'm sorry, it was the Celtics beat them first at home last year. But
right.
the Timberwolves gave them trouble. And it's funny too because something that the Timberwolves figured out, and it's funny that they figured it out first because they had Sam Mitchell, who's just not a good coach, but the Timberwolves were the first team that said, fuck it, we're just going to switch everything on defense.
Yeah.
And then everybody kind of rolled with that idea.
Yeah.
Obviously all the way to the finals with Cleveland doing it. And with Karl Anthony Towns and Wiggins and Rubio, I love that kid they drafted from Providence, Chris Dunn.
Yeah, he's really good. He's got a lot of weight in him. You watch him, he looks a lot like young Wade. You can tell he's been watching Wade footage.
Yeah, and I mean they got Zach LaVine. I mean they got a lot of good athletic talent. The guy I know Tibbs is going to get the most out of them. I expect that the Timberwolves will have the biggest leap in wins. From
you think they're a top 4 seed? Because that's what I told people. I told people they're a top 4 seed this year.
Because that's a lot of wins to jump up from.
Tibbs might win Coach of the Year again too.
Yeah, but the other team who I think is going to give the Warriors problems, and this is a team that I do think is going to be a top 4 seed, is the Utah Jazz. I really love the Jazz this year, and they're supremely talented, and they had a great offseason. And they gave every single game they played against the Warriors came down to the wire last season. And this year they got better. They added George Hill at point guard. Rodney Hood is a great young shooting guard. Gordon Hayward is a top small forward. Derek Favors is a top power forward. And Rudy Gobert is, in my opinion, the best defensive center in the NBA.
Yep.
And then they got Dante Exum coming back from injury.
Yep, he's very athletic too. Hopefully he's got his athleticism.
Yeah, and they got Joe Johnson coming off the bench. They got Boris Diaw coming off the bench. They got a good coach. Like that team is really, really good. And everybody's kind of on the Jazz this summer the way everybody was kind of on the Bucks last summer. So they might have one of those like everybody loves them so much they're just not going to meet expectation type seasons.
Maybe. Yeah, that's actually a good way to put it.
But they played the Warriors great last year, and I think that they got the way that they're constructed is a good team to play against the Dubs, because the one thing that the Warriors will have trouble with is, of course, size. They're not going to be able to defend a big team. Of course, they're going to run a big team into the ground on the other side of the ball on offense. But Derek Favors and Gobert and Hayward, that's an insane front court. So it's going to be interesting.
I actually think it's interesting that it might be Jazz and Timberwolves games that might be the most exciting and most hard-fought games in the entire NBA. When you think about like all the different teams that exist, I know that I
Yeah.
think that the Knicks games with Cavs are going to be good. I think the Knicks Bulls games are going to be
Mhm.
okay because of the intrigue and things like that. But I think that right there is probably going to be a very
That's
exciting
yeah.
matchup
Those are gonna be super fun
because they're all young and
matchups.
they all have a lot to prove, and they're in the West, and nobody's going to kind of see them coming. I mean, Tibbs, you better be paying attention to Tibbs, and then with the Jazz. But at the same time, like people are not going to really think of the Tibbs, the Timberwolves, and the Jazz as those teams, but they're going to come up and they're going to be winning a lot of games that people didn't expect them to win.
Yeah, just out of the small market factor. I mean, nobody's no like average casual NBA fans will say, "Oh, I'm gonna turn on this Jazz game or this Timberwolves game." But I mean, hey, Karl Anthony Towns. If I was the GM of an NBA team and you called me and said you wanted to trade for Karl Anthony Towns, unless you're giving me back Steph, Durant, or LeBron, I'm hanging up on you. So,
Mm.
and maybe not even those guys. I'm keeping Towns for the long. Towns is going to dominate the NBA for the
Yeah, yeah,
next
yeah.
12, 15 years.
Oh yeah, he's got a lot of talent. I mean, and he's got a lot of different types of talent. He's like more talented in my opinion. He's not got the same frame, but he's more talented in my opinion than Tim Duncan when he came into the league. You know, in
Yeah,
terms
I
of raw
mean,
talent.
he's got athleticism that Duncan didn't have. He's got the mobility that Duncan didn't have.
Yeah,
He's got a shot. He's got length. He can play defense, and especially with Tibbs, because Tibbs is like, I mean, obviously you know how Tibbs is, being a Bulls fan, but the development that he's gonna give Towns on defense is just, man,
yeah.
it's gonna be scary to play against the Timberwolves going
That's
forward.
absolutely. Well,
I think Tibbs is definitely gonna get Coach of the Year.
really okay. You calling it
Yeah,
now? And then so
yeah.
who wins the championship? And how many games?
Golden State in 4.
Four.
Whoever,
Even if the Knicks get in, they get it. They win in
even if the
four.
Knicks get in, it's gonna be a sweep.
Oh man, no faith
I
in the
just,
Knicks.
I pose this scenario to everyone I've spoken to who has shown me any kind of. They said I don't know how it's gonna work. They doubt the Warriors. I'm gonna just pose this scenario to you, because I'm somebody that plays basketball, obviously just for fun, but you're somebody that plays basketball. Just imagine you're a defender, and Draymond Green catches the rebound. In one corner, you got the greatest shooter in the history of basketball. In the other corner, you got probably the second greatest shooter in the history of basketball. On the wing, you got Kevin Durant coming down the paint.
Who is one of the
And on
top
the
10
other,
shooters maybe of all time.
right, ever. And then on the other side, you got Iguodala trailing to come to the paint too. What are you supposed to do as a defender? Do you just there's no right answer, because you can't stop that. So I'm just and the difference is too. Last thing about the Warriors is that when the Heat joined together, right? This is the big difference between the Heat and the Warriors when the Big Three joined with the Heat. In order for LeBron to be at his best, or for Wade to be at his best, the other guy had to sacrifice, because both of them needed the ball in their hands to be their best self they can be.
Mm-hmm.
And Wade decided, I'm going to take the L. LeBron, you go be the GOAT. I'm just going to be number 2. For the Warriors, Curry don't need the ball to flourish. Durant doesn't need the ball to flourish. Clay don't need the ball to flourish. All those guys complement each other without needing the basketball. So it's like, I think that Durant's numbers are going to go down a little bit in terms of his scoring, but his efficiency is going to go through the roof. This guy is never, and Clay, he might never shoot a contested jumper for the rest of his career. It's just insane, man. Like, that team is so perfect.
So you think that? Do you think they're gonna win more games, or you think they're just gonna take so many games off they don't win more games than last year?
No, I don't think they're going to win 73 again. I don't think they're going to even win 70, because I think that it's funny because I was listening to an interview last night, and he was saying that last season it wasn't about the fatigue, because I mean a lot of those games, the game was over by the end of the first quarter, but it was just we have to get up every single game to play so we can break that record. It took like a mental type of toll, and I think they know they don't want to do that. So I still think they're going to win like 64, 65, but I don't see them touching 70 again.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and just say New York in 7,
Hey,
just to say
listen,
it,
man.
just to say it, because then
Knicks,
if I'm right and you're wrong, that's gonna be messed up.
hey, man, the Knicks haven't won a championship in 42 years. So if we got our first title in 40, if
Well,
we
you know,
got the first
we
title
wanted
in my
D
lifetime,
Rose to win one here, but I think D Rose is motivated and Melo's motivated, and man, New York needs a title, and they're
yeah,
gonna be enshrined in history if they win the way New York
I'm saying
operates
if we ended up getting the first title in our lifetime
against
and we
that
beat that
team, against
against
arguably the
that
best
team,
team on paper ever.
I might not ever watch basketball again because I'll be too emotionally distraught. Like the we won, I'll just I'll just burst into one giant tear. That's it.
So, well, I look, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today. This dark night. Let people know where they can hit you up at.
Let me first say thank you for having me. Anytime, and they can hit me up anywhere, whether it's Twitter,
Give them the handles.
Twitter, Instagram, wherever. The handle is Dark Knight Music. That's with 1K. It's Dark Knight like Batman, not like Dark Knight like the night sky, not like Batman. So that's
DARKNIGHT.
Music.
Yeah.
Well, that's Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, SoundCloud, wherever.
For sure. And you and I, we got to start doing some stuff. I got a couple releases I got to get to first, but you and I, we got to get into the booth and lab and everything and see what we can create together too. I got a couple records that it might work well with. So, all right, fam. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.